your way, Tom.
And it's call. All right, we'll call this meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance at 5:31. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have a moment of silence for Winston Taylor, please? All right, roll call.
Tom Day Jr.,
Here.
Lisa Petrosky,
Here.
Dominic Roberta, James Rollo,
Here.
Deborah Marto,
Here.
Bill Cornwell,
Here.
George Toth,
Here.
Mayor Margaret Stevie.
Here.
All right. I don't believe we have any citizens' comments. Mayor Margaret Stevick.
No comments.
Dominic is not here. He has nothing. Streets, George.
No, I don't have anything.
And Parks and Rec, Lisa.
Thank you. Discussion of the DCNR grant, matching funds for the Joseph Markozic Sports Complex Improvement Project.
All right, I'm going to call Dan Kaufman from Eads.
Hello,
Hi, Dan, how are you?
how are you doing?
Good. So you want to go ahead and give us a brief discussion on this project and the advantages to waiting?
Yeah, sure. So after we had the meeting on a couple of Fridays ago, I went back and started looking at doing up a final estimate. Both the grants, the one we're applying for and the one that you already have, the DCD grant, require matches. The DCD grant requires a 15% match, and the DCNR grant that we are attempting, or that we're applying for, requires a 50% match. But we contacted DCNR just to find out whether we could use the DCD grant as part of the match for the DCNR grant. And they said that we could, and they like to see that because they like to see the people making the applications have what they call a financial partner. And since you would be using other monies to equal the 50% match, then I think that looks more favorable to DCNR. So the advantage to using a DCD grant as your match is you can leverage that grant for obviously DCNR money. So basically, if you use the DCD grant to match the DCNR grant, then that would be less that the borough would have to supply to match the 50% requirement of the DCNR grant. The main downside of doing this would be that we can't. The other question we asked DCNR was, can we do the job now, say that this is part of all the same project, and can we use that as the match? Unfortunately, we can't use the match money until we already have a grant in place with DCNR. So that would mean that we couldn't do the parking lot improvements this year. We have to wait until next year after the DCNR grant, after the DCNR agreement was in place. Now that being said, they're supposed to make the DCNR grant announcements in the early fall of this year, with the agreements being in place by like January of next year. If we didn't get the DCNR grant, we could probably hurry up and get the parking lot project out to bid and then use the DCD money this year if we didn't get the DCNR grant. So that's the main disadvantage of using a DCD grant. The main advantage of using a DCD grant as a match would be that you end up having to supply less borough money. So basically, the DCD grant and the match you'd have to have with the DCD grant would be a match for the DCNR grant. So just to give you an example, to use the whole $121,931 that you got in DCD, the borough to use all that money would have to come up with add $21,507. Well, if we combine that as a match to the DCNR grant, that money you can basically get them, you can use that to match the DCNR money. So you'd be using that money to get more money.
Yeah.
So that's our 15%, Dan? The 21,507?
would be the 15%.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'd have to spend that to use the DCD money no matter what.
Right.
But we can lump that in with the DCD money and use that as leverage for the DCNR grant.
And therefore get more money.
Yes.
But with a time delay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Which we still have plenty of time on that grant. It was relatively new, so there isn't a time restriction on using that money yet. That still would be a couple of years down the road, which we shouldn't have a problem with. But again, if they announced that we didn't get the DCNR grant, we could put the parking lot project out in the early fall and do it in the fall if we didn't get the DCNR grant.
So,
But that's, of course, assuming, I'm sorry, and I'll just also, one last thing I'll be done. That's assuming that DCNR stays on the schedule that the local rep told us they'd be on.
okay, if we wait and we do phase 1 and phase 2 of this project at the same time, is there any chance we could save money since we're doing both of them together?
Well, the borough would have to provide less money in match. And
That's not bad.
and as with most bigger projects, there would be an expectation that the project would come in lower because obviously, the more work there is, people will try to, cut down the price a little bit to get it.
Okay.
So proportionally smaller paving projects are proportionally higher than bigger paving projects.
And then again, that
Will we
would
get
be,
more work per dollar?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Can we get more accomplished, in this project? Being we're gonna be trying to save money.
Right now we have a set scope of work, which is pretty much what we talked about the other day when I was down there. That would, if we could expand the scope of work, but then that would be more money that would have to be provided by the borough.
Yeah, but if we do both of these together and, the bids come in lower, we should have extra money left over.
Yes, if they would come in lower than what the estimate was, we have enough in the scope of work that we could get more done, I would say.
That's the point I'm trying to drive.
Yes. If with a larger project and if the bids came in lower than what the estimate is, we could expand, because everything we talked about pretty much was included in this estimate. So, the trail or the walking trails or anything like that could be increased, or, we pave a little further or something like that. So yeah, if the bids came in lower than what the estimate was and we did all this, then we could do more, yes.
Okay.
and Dan, this is Deb.
Yeah.
So we will be basing everything hinging on the DCED funding to be accepted to move forward with any of these other game plans. They already accepted us?
Yeah, They said we could use the DCED grant as our matching fund. as part of
No,
the
I
matching
understand that, but are we approved for the DCED?
fund. Yeah, we already have, we're already approved for
Okay,
that.
okay.
The one that
My
we're,
apologies.
and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, the one we're not approved for yet is the DCNR, correct?
Okay,
Correct. We're just
Okay.
making that application right now. We already have the
Thank you.
821,000 from DCD approved. It's already, the agreement's been signed and everything.
So we would be essentially putting our DCED grant up against and forward through the next one, and then we would hopefully get that one as well.
Yes, and we should know that by early fall, from what the DCNR rep told us.
Okay. What, I mean, I know you're not really, you can't really say, but what are the chances of that DCNR coming through with all of our backups and everything we have going for it?
Well, like, when we sent her the draft application, the draft description, the estimate, and, she thought it looked like a really good project.
Okay.
And we've been getting some, letters of support from like, a local church and, the Monroeville Library. One of the trail folks is gonna get us a letter tomorrow, so they like to see the partners. And again, with a financial partner, and a lot of people start, saying about using the park and being able to use, they really like the amenities that we're talking about adding. It's a really good, I think it is a really good application. Obviously, I can't guarantee they will fund it, but, we got positive feedback from, the first line person at DCNR. Obviously, she doesn't make the decisions, but, she really didn't come back with anything that she said she didn't like with the project.
Okay.
Any changes or anything like that. She thought it looked favorable.
Okay, Dan, there's a area on this grant, remove existing ball field fences and scoreboards.
Yeah.
Now, what fences do that include and what scoreboards?
There's still, after we had that meeting the other day, we walked over and looked at the ball fields and stuff like that. There's still some old fencing and scoreboards over across the creek.
Okay,
Yeah. We weren't gonna touch the good ball field. We're
okay,
gonna make
good.
those improvements as part of phase 3. That's still just the residual stuff across the creek.
Okay,
can a discount be made for scrap metal?
No,
Well,
we would,
one thing that we didn't do on here that we could do moving forward, they do accept in-kind work. So if the street department had an opportunity to do some of that stuff, and we could keep track of the time and hours, like removing the fences or the scoreboard could be something the street department could do if they had time.
right.
So if we kept track of all that, we could use that to offset some of your match also.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
I like that.
do you still have to remove the concession stand, or did you take that off?
I took that off.
Okay.
I think, to go back to the ball fields and the fences and the scoreboard, I think that's probably vague enough that if there was anything else over there we needed ripped down, we could probably include that in it too,
Yeah,
to get rid of anything that's still over there.
yeah, that
Like
would be,
maybe moving forward, we demo that pad where the old concession stand was at. But
okay. Yeah, the stuff like that, keeping track of their hours and time and costs, that wouldn't be an issue at all,
so,
or any kind.
I mean, that is also something, they will take, in-kind matches. And we could, clear that with the DCNR person and then, keep track of that stuff moving forward. But something like that would be probably good if if the street department had time. I know they do a lot of stuff and they're really busy. So I didn't want to commit to any of that on here because it's really hard to justify that up front. Because if, for instance, if I say it's going to take your guys 10 hours to rip down a fence and I put that in my estimate, and it only takes them 5 hours, then you got to make up that money someplace else.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, but that would be something that would be good and pretty easy for them to do. But I didn't want to commit to that right now because who knows what they're going to be doing at the time. And
Right.
so we got it covered either way.
so expensive.
I have nothing further.
I don't have anything.
So am I good to make the motion then? I'd like to make a motion to direct Eads to include the DCED funds as matching for the DCNR, funds for the DCNR match, grant funds, thus delaying by 1 year the parking lot paving. Why can't I talk to it?
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded on the DCD funds being matching funds for the DCNR grant, delaying the project for a year for the parking lot paving of the Markozic Sports Complex. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Well, thank you folks for your time. I apologize for, bringing out on Monday night you weren't supposed to be, but, I have a good feeling about this grant, and like I said, we got positive feedback from DCNR, which is always good because they're pretty picky. So, and she wasn't picking at anything, so it seems pretty good, so. We get a couple more letters that are coming in, I think we have a good shot at it.
All right, good. Fingers crossed.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right,
Have a good evening.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Come back.
All right, anything else under Parks and Recreation?
I believe that is it.
Okie dokie. Moving on, Finance and Economic Development. Bill.
I have nothing.
All right, how about Health and Welfare? Deb?
Nothing to report, President.
Alrighty, I have nothing under Electric. Public Safety, Jim Rollo.
Nothing at all, sir, thank you.
Can
Alrighty.
we go back to electric for a moment?
Sure.
Everything's good with the shut off. There was, for the 10th.
The cards, yeah, the cards went out today. If you want to take a look at them, they're on the counter out there. I took them up to the post office this afternoon. We've been notifying the businesses at least, and, nobody's gonna be happy about it, but there's really not much we can do about it.
And if we alert them on Facebook, there'll be a lot of whining, but if we don't put it on there, then they'll say, well, why don't we know?
There's
So,
still one.
yes.
Can you go back to streets?
Sure.
When are we gonna fix that bump permanently up at your street
Yeah, I just,
in the center?
You talking about the grate that goes across
Yeah.
Center Avenue?
isn't that WB?
They should be doing that pretty soon,
Okay.
because the pavement plants just opened last week.
Is that the water company or
I
is
thought it was
that?
a-
No, there was a water main break.
Yeah,
And then it ran into the water ran into that, there was so much water and ice,
mhm.
because it happened on one of the coldest days this winter, that it pushed those grates up, so they just have to get in there and fix it. It's gonna be better for our guys to do it, because if we keep waiting on the water company, it'll be in the fall.
Mhm.
Well, okay, so on the same line of questioning there, can we do anything about the paving that the water company did as far as the sidewalks? Because
Yeah.
Audrey just told me this yesterday, and I guess hers was paved a while ago, but they paved over the exit for her sub pump and her downspouts. She said she has called, they don't call her
Their house
back
or at her
at her
business?
business.
Because the business that's been a problem, ongoing problem.
Yeah, but if they covered it over with cement, it doesn't.
Well, technically, it shouldn't be spewing out into the street, it should be going into her drain in the basement.
Okay, well regardless, her downspouts can go out to the street and then cover it over also.
I'll have to have Mark and them look at it.
Do you recall who was doing the work on Agatha Street? Was that the water company?
Yeah, the water company, you're all over the place.
So,
So it's over their contract.
I don't know if they're gonna wait until the weather breaks or what, but our ordinance is curb to curb, correct?
Right.
Correct.
So, I know Agatha Street's getting real bad, and
So
the
they-
holes are sinking in. and-
They always wait until they have X number of patches to do, and then they bring in a company that'll mill it and then patch it. It's just a big inconvenient waiting game, and, we just have to wait on it till they're ready to do it.
Anything else? Any adjournment?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And we still have a meeting next Monday too.
Yeah, that's our regular.
Correct. Let me turn this off.
That's right.